Okay. Hi, Jutta.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very good. How are you?
Good, good. I got two lights here shining on me, and it's very dark.
No, that's fine. I can see you. The lighting is good.
Yeah,
So
that's
just,
weird. You see, I only know Zoom. I don't really know this thing.
yes, StreamYard is really good, Jutta. So I'm glad that you were able to get on. And I see that you've got your empowerment coach up as your banner, which is really good. Can you hear me?
Yes, yes, yes. I'm just
Perfect.
trying to figure out my settings. I don't know, like hang on 1 second.
That's okay.
Oh, yo, yo. Can you see me
Nice.
properly?
Yeah, I can see you. Are you wanting to do the
Okay.
background? Yeah,
Yeah,
you good?
just yeah, I had my green screen up, but it looks a little bit funny. It goes funny. So yeah.
Mm,
I have to do it
That's
like this. Dark.
That's okay. You still look professional. It's absolutely fine. So everyone, welcome to Out of the Fog, the Trauma Network site, produced by Country Coaching. Tonight we have Jutta. Now, Jutta, how do you? I always get confused with your surname. Klipsch. Klipsch.
Clips, clips, clips,
Yes,
clips.
that's
Nothing.
the one. Yes, empowerment coach. So Jutta, tell us a little bit about yourself before we begin tonight.
Well, where should
Actually,
I?
Jutta, sorry,
Yes.
Jutta, let me just stop you for one moment. What I will do very quickly is I'll just quickly read out a couple of contact numbers in case
Ah,
anyone
yes,
who's
yes,
watching
yes.
gets triggered throughout the show, which is sometimes quite normal. Obviously, it is a trauma, um, a revision of past traumas. So you might get triggered throughout. And if you do, just remember that it's very important that you turn to someone, obviously, who you can trust in and that can help you. If you know a counselor or a good friend, we also have some contact numbers here. So Beyond Blue, their contact number is 1300 224 636. The grief line is 1300 845 and 745. And obviously, if you're stuck at all, you can always turn to myself or to Jutta. That's absolutely fine, isn't it, Jutta?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Yeah. Maybe I don't
Yeah.
know if you, because I don't know StreamYard, maybe you can put the phone numbers in the chat there. Like,
Yes, that's actually probably a very good suggestion. I definitely will do that once we resume,
yeah.
or once we finish, shall I say. So, yeah, so we'll get straight into it. So, you to tell me a bit about yourself.
Okay, where should I start? I'm into coaching for a long time. I did my coaching cert for in 2008, and I have done NLP. I'm hypnotherapist. I have done embryology. I have done lots of modalities, and I'm
Yeah.
just passionate about helping people, get unstuck and to really thrive and not just survive in life. And sometimes we just need a little help. It's very hard to move forward sometimes because we're getting stuck in our own mindset, in our own blind spots, and we can't see them
Mm.
by ourselves. So yes, I always have been passionate about helping others. I mean, like some people want to become astronauts and policemen. I wanted to be Santa Claus when I was 8. So yeah, because I wanted everybody to be happy.
Yeah. That is such a good portrayal of who you are as a person. For our viewers, I've met and I've done quite a bit of work with Yuta, and I also spoke at Yuta. You run the Women's Empowerment Summit, which is just an absolutely amazing contribution to society, and obviously to like-minded women. But this show, obviously, as well as for our fellow brothers, right? Our fellow men that might be experiencing mental health,
Yeah.
coming back from trauma. So it's all about these really beautiful things. Now, let's go back to what actually started you into. I know that when you were younger, you wanted to be Santa Claus. So that tells me that in your character, you always wanted to help people, see people happy. But what actually transpired in your life to, I suppose,
Yeah.
create who you are today?
Yes, I mean, life happens when you make other plans, that I have learned in my 6 decades being on this planet. And obviously, we're talking about trauma, and I have experienced trauma as well. Obviously, I was 14 when probably I experienced my first trauma with my parents, and I don't know how deep you want to get into it, but and then I was 21. There was another trauma, and an ex held me hostage for probably 4 hours and with a gun and stuff like that. There was another
Wow.
quite an what would you say? Like a very determined event, and then my second marriage was domestic violence. So yeah, I mean, I could write a book, yes, and
Yeah.
and when we going through trauma, doesn't matter when, but we tend to make up beliefs about ourselves, which um, if we don't work through it and if we don't address it, will shape our life for the rest of our lives.
Mm,
It will just determine, and even like suppressed emotions, we think, oh yeah, we don't think about them, but they have an effect. You
mm.
cannot run away from it.
You can't run away from it. Yeah, that is such a very, very true point. You really can't. Like, do you mind if we go a little deeper into trauma,
No,
and
no,
just
go for it.
speak?
I'm an open book. I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Yeah,
You've done a lot of healing, so I know that we're pretty much in a very confident space here with you. And
yeah,
obviously, you've read the guidelines in the email about feeling safe and if you're uncomfortable. So if we can just go back to you being a 14-year-old, and the first traumas you experienced with your family. I think what's very interesting about trauma that I'm very passionate about giving an allowance for others to learn about and to see, and for people who are experiencing trauma or have experienced trauma, are these patterns that we tend to repeat throughout our lifetime.
yeah.
And I know that tonight we're going to be talking about codependency, which we'll get into a bit later in relationships. But let's go back to how this all ties in with tonight. So tell me a little bit about those events, in a little bit more detail, if you don't mind, Jutta.
No, no, that's fine. I mean, I come from a little village in Germany, 2,000 population. Everybody knows everybody. And I was very rebellious when I was 13, 14, as you normally are, I think. And I mean, I came home from the pub. There's not much to do in a little village. Like our
Mm.
pub was our community center. So
Yes, yes.
I came home drunk, and I just remember I was on the floor on the ground, and my dad, I only have one brother. My dad, my brother, and my mom was just shouting at me and carrying on. And my mom actually kicked me in the head. And I was very surprised that even my dad was not sticking up for me, like,
Mm.
because he was always my confidant, and he was always talking to me and trying to understand me. But I
Yeah.
just find really there was no security. I was alone by myself. And the next day my mom said, oh, we might have to take, I had a proper dent in my head. We might take you
Wow.
to the doctor. I mean, I didn't really, nothing wrong was wrong with me, but and we say, like the T-bar of the it must have been winter, the T-bar of the ski lift hit you, and that's
Yeah.
already where the inauthenticity is, the hiding, and I believe that I made up the belief that I was by myself, but I was alone. I'm independent. I can't rely on anybody else. Nobody's sticking up
Mm.
for me. And I became very, very independent, and yeah, and I always thought something wrong with me.
Yes.
Like my grandmother didn't like me. She said, oh, I always had the last word. And I always, when I was asked, because when I was asked to do something like clean the dish, I would say always no, make a big rah hoorah, and then I would do it anyway. But you see,
Mm.
like, I think I didn't really like to be told, and yeah, it was just weird. And then I can see how I repeated the pattern then in all my relationships. It's sort of like independence, then
Yeah.
I would say, no, 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 no. I would get rejection. Then I would be submissive. Then I would be resentful, and
Hmm.
then I would be
Wow.
independent. yeah, and it just was all the time like that, like long time, many years. So I
Yeah,
still had this. I mean, don't tell me what to do, but then I
mm,
could see I went into submissiveness, did still do what they wanted me to do, and then I got resentful because I wasn't true to myself. I lost
mm,
myself in the whole thing.
mm. I think that one of the big characteristics, or one of the coping mechanisms that we form in trauma, is to very much become a people pleaser. It's as if, and I love the fact that you are so self-aware of the cycle that you went through, how it comes from standing up for yourself or being a rebel. You don't get to tell me what to do. Like you're trying to stand up for something. And then it's like this guilt that happens
Yeah.
where we kind of second guess ourselves now, and oh, maybe, if I do this, perhaps they'll think differently of me, or, they won't be as hard on me. And I think it also comes to this, all people whom are very emotional and very caring tend to suffer from more people pleasing and more guilt. And so inadvertently we do the thing to please, but then at the same time, it's this very deep intricacy of then feeling bad because basically, like you've just said, you become submissive, right? Why
Yeah,
didn't I
you put
continue
yourself
on?
totally on the back burner,
Yes, yes.
it feels nearly like it is a compulsion to people please. It's like we don't have a choice because
Mm,
when we don't do it, we feel really crap, we feel really bad and the guilt and then if you are in general, we couple up with these people who actually um how can I say that? They actually thrive on it, putting us down and belittle us, you know?
yes,
And
yes.
then it's just like around we go until it's like a dance. And if you want to interrupt the dance, you have to just get out of the dance and do another dance, a different dance. And that takes courage, and it takes
Mm,
a lot of self-reflection, and it takes a lot of determination and decision and assertiveness, and
yes,
it's not easy. It's not easy.
no, yeah,
And it's everything. It's like building this muscle. Like you have to start slow. And I mean, in general, I believe that you can have some really breakthroughs and transformation. It can sometimes happen really quickly, like you're doing hypnotherapy and I do. So you can do it very quickly
mm,
sometimes. But yeah, I think in general it takes some time to really, because we have built this muscle and how we are for years and years, and we
mm,
put a layer and another layer and we get into this loop. So it takes a while until we build this muscle and getting out of the dance, so to speak.
yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And I think the familiarity that we keep repeating until we're actually able to take responsibility for our part. Now, when I say that, I definitely don't want that to be taken the wrong way for someone who's going through trauma, who has experienced trauma. We don't verbally ask for something to happen to us, right? Life happens, shit happens, let's be honest. It's part of
Yeah,
life. But I think that from young, when you're used to a form of something, and I look at different examples throughout life for people whom are never allowed to have freedom of speech. It's funny how they become very closed off to expressing themselves. It's the same thing as children who might be brought up in a very violent family. They tend to then chase, like we're talking about here, Jutta, the things that you chase or the people that you invite in. And we do this so subconsciously because it's like there's this thing that we need to fix in our outside world. And so we tend to bring these people into us and never actually know the part that we're playing at that time in the dance, as you say, Jutta, right?
yes,
It,
yes.
it
I
just
mean, I had to take responsibility for my marriage, my second marriage, and the domestic violence. I took
mm,
responsibility for it because I was there. That
yes,
doesn't mean
same.
it was my fault, or like it's not like this. But we have to acknowledge that, you see, like if I wouldn't have had a seed of unworthiness and a seed of low self-esteem, I would have
Yes.
never ended up in a domestic violence situation. But like there was a seed there of not feeling worthy. So and they tapped into it. And the interesting thing is, I believe really that when we choose partners and relationships, we actually normally, in general, you can really see the pattern. We choose partners, one of our parent,
Mm.
because we have to sort the shit out, so to
Yes.
speak, with one of them. So to learn and overcome where we have been unhealthy, or work it through. And I have a really good example. I had a client, and she was pregnant with a second child, and they split up. Like she split up with her husband because he wouldn't stop using drugs.
Mm.
And she would say, why can't he like put his family first before his drugs? And I said, well, he's addicted, so it has nothing to do with you personally. He was
Hmm.
addicted, so it's not like, oh, I choose to be addicted. He was addicted.
Yes.
And then I reminded her of her father, who was actually drug addict and alcoholic, who would never have given up the drugs and the alcohol for his family. And can you see how she repeated? And
Yes.
and it was just a conversation, and it totally clicked, and you could see how this weight came off her shoulders by realizing she was repeating. She wanted to that somebody would put down their drugs or their alcoholism for the love of the family, for the love of the children, that was more important. And she repeated that thing because she wanted that to happen. Does that make
Yes.
sense?
Yeah. It makes so much sense. That was what I was just about to say to you as you're leading into this, was do you think that we subconsciously choose consciously and subconsciously, right? Choose these same patterns because we're waiting to be validated by someone. We're waiting for someone to change the script so that somehow we, as you just say, something somehow you fix something from your past. It gives you that it's okay. They stopped it for me, so they loved me enough. I've been able to get this from someone else.
Yeah, it's outside validation. It's outside, oh, I'm
Yes.
okay, like, so we recreate this. I don't think we do it really consciously. I think it's all
Mm.
subconscious. You can put
Yeah.
a addict and a codependency in a room of 1,000 people, they always will meet. It's just
That's
that
so amazing.
it's just that attraction, because each side has to work the shit out, like,
Mm.
and so basically, in a sense, it sounds a little bit weird, but it's if each of them transforms, it's actually a nurturing ground to transform, if that makes sense.
Yes. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And
It
then,
makes perfect sense.
yeah, so we
Mm.
have to go sometimes through these things, because then we get it and we embody it, because things like this you can't do it by positive thinking and
Mm.
affirmation. You see, like, I do not believe in affirmation. I mean, I know heaps of people do, but
Yes.
like, you usually will say, oh, I'm lovable. Yeah, but there's like, like the subconscious mind loud, has more, screams more, nah, bullshit, man. Like, it is,
Yes. Yeah.
you have to tackle it differently.
You do, absolutely. And you have to put the work in. Like, I mean, we know about manifestation, right? And
Yeah.
obviously NLP and rewiring and all these types of basically you're changing the patterns and the belief systems and you're bringing in something new. But you need to absolutely believe that you're ready for that before that can even transpire. And then you have to put the work in. You have to
Well,
want it.
yeah, I'm not sure if you need to know if you're ready for it. You have to just really live consciously. You can't
Mm.
go on automatic pilot, because that's what it is. It's automatic pilot. And you have to become conscious about your decisions and behavior, and for your feelings. You really have to become conscious about it. You have to become
Mm.
aware.
Yes, yeah. So we've gone from the 14-year-old now to your first relationship. because tonight we're mostly on the trauma of relationships, right? So looking back, they say hindsight is 2020. Um, Looking back, do you now see the red flags and the connection to the relationship that brought the domestic violence and the destruct you to? And just for our viewers, I've seen a picture of you, the one that you've put on before with your children, and I have to say, your face, your eyes, wow, Jutta. You know, they say the eyes are, to connected to the soul. And for me, I see this person that is just so helpless and in need of something more, so doubting of life and love and nurture.
Yeah, it's I know which my kids were probably 2 and 4, and yes, and I was at the time I was actually going to church. Um, and yeah, it was interesting. I mean, I looked at that picture too. You just see the sadness, I would say, you
Yes.
know.
Yeah.
It's just sad, and it's interesting because after he left, um, and he was like when we met at church, he was half a year clean and sober, and but the behavior was crazy as like, because take
Mm,
the substance away from an addict, then they actually had to deal with their emotions and they can't numb themselves down. So it's
yeah.
crazy, it's crazy. And I mean, he's used to ring me every morning at this attention, and I mean, I was like this German cool chick, in church with a pink Volvo, and you know it's yeah, but then, and when he left, like I remember this old woman in church. She said, I felt always the sadness with you, and it makes sense now.
Mm.
You
So
know,
did you meet him in Germany, Jutta?
no, it was here. Yeah. I came in 1985 to Australia, and my kids were born in 19. Natasha was born in 1992. So yeah, I was in Australia already. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you got held hostage, was that in Germany or was that
Ah,
here
yeah,
in
that was in
Australia?
Germany. That was like, yeah. So when I had my kids, I was 31. In Germany, I was 21 when that happened with the hostage thing. And I was living with this guy. And I don't know, like we went to this beer festival. He got jealous and he attacked, ripped my dress away. And I went to the fire brigade. They sort of rescued me. And then my parents went on holidays with the sailing holidays. And I wanted to go, and then he said, "No, if you're going, your stuff will be out on the street." Like when I
So
think
very
about it,
controlling.
yeah, and when I think, yeah,
Mm,
very insecure. When I think about it now, I think ridiculous. Like somebody would tell
yeah.
me that now, I would like tell them to get lost.
I know you would, yes.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know, and but the thing is, I can't blame myself for it because that's where I was, and I really believe we are different versions. We do evolution. So,
Yeah.
then I might be version number 20, and now I'm version number 40. So at the time, I did not have the mindset, I didn't have the resources, I just wasn't the same person, like I couldn't have acted any different. Anyway, so I took my dog. I had this big English sheepdog, took it to my house, which was about 10 kilometers away. My grandmother didn't want to let me into the house because I had this thing. And I said to her, "Oh, he hit me." And he said, "Oh, she said, you probably um, deserved it." Yeah, my grandmother didn't really like me.
Wow.
I didn't like it. So I was sitting 2 hours down the grass. She didn't let me in. Then she let me in. Anyway, and then this guy, like, he lost his license because of alcohol. He came, I don't know, 2 or 3 days later when my brother wasn't there, and he said, "Open the door," and I said no, and he smashed the door, 2 doors actually. And yeah, and he had a gun, and I mean it was an old gun, but I was pretty sure it was working. And yeah, so drama, 4 hours, and then and he was drunk and glass everywhere. And then I left for the neighbors. Took my stupid dog, wouldn't do anything because he knew him. And yeah,
Yes.
and then my parents came back 2 days later, and it's funny because only maybe 10, 15 years it dawned on me that they came home and said, "What happened?" And I told them, and nothing happened. there was this guy who held me hostage. I mean, if it would be me, I would go to the next police station and would
Mm.
have, made a big rah-rah. And yeah, nothing happened. Nothing. And then I got actually a new job. I used to work at the German Weather Service, which I quit, and it was a public service. Anyway, I started a new job, and some people said you can't start your job because you will be somewhere with a knife, and said, I'm going to my new job. You know, and yeah, but I mean, when I realized that, and there was another a little like I was actually not conscious about it for years.
Mm.
Subconsciously, like I don't matter, and I nobody has my back. I'm by
Wow.
myself.
Yes.
And then
Yeah.
yeah,
That this is so it's literally what you've just said to me is it's this reinstatement from when you were younger, where I
mm,
hear you say these words of I didn't matter. I was on
yeah,
my own. You had to try to protect yourself. You weren't being taken seriously. And then you had people who you were meant to trust and who was meant to look out for you, basically validating the fact that you probably deserved having an experience like that.
yeah. Well, my grandmother wasn't very favorable towards me, so yeah. But yeah, so it was, yeah, and it was interesting because as I said, I just a few years ago, like 10, 15 years ago, it actually dawned on me when I did another course, when I was working my stuff out, that my thing was actually I don't matter, the world doesn't care, and am I good enough? That was my three things.
Mm. Those are powerful things, Utah.
Yeah, and
Those are
like
very,
even
very
in my
powerful
business,
things.
sometimes if I don't watch it and I can see it's creeping, like you can work it out and
Mm.
you can heal and everything, but in the background it still can come up sometimes. And
Yeah.
I'm aware of it. So oops, yeah,
Yes.
like in my business sometimes, oh, I don't know anything about any, like everybody knows what I know. It's always my thing, like this I
Mm.
don't matter, just in a different garment, so to speak, so and you have, if you're not aware of what's playing there, so awareness is one of the biggest things you can have, awareness
Huge.
about, because what you're
Mm.
not aware of, you can't do anything about it.
That's right. Yes. Unless you can see it and know that thing or become aware of that thing, like you're saying, you can't work with it. You don't.
No,
You're not.
no, no.
I'm trying to look for another word for aware, Yuta. Do you think it's a presence?
Yeah, well, presence is a good one as well. You have to be present, aware. You have to be conscious, like present, conscious, aware is, because most of us run around like, I don't know, we just go through life being busy,
Yes.
doing this and that, and we don't stop. And so, yeah, we have to reflect. We have to sit down and reflect and meditate and journal.
Mm.
I mean, even if you don't do, but you have to reflect. And so
Mm.
many, you cannot transform if you don't sit down and reflect. And I mean, in each religion and each philosophy, it's know thyself, and that's
Yeah.
awareness.
Yes. I
You
love
know?
that. Yeah.
And
Know
there's
thyself.
nothing, and the thing is, what I actually really don't like, like in I don't know, there's a lot of things you need to be fixed, it's all BS. Nobody
Oh,
needs
that
to
is
be
such
fixed.
BS.
Yeah, yeah,
That
but
is
the
such,
thing
I
is, you see, that's
completely
why we
agree.
feel also shit about ourselves, because the media, the advertising, you have to look this way, and you have to,
Yes,
I don't know, size six, blah blah blah, bullshit, bullshit, and
absolutely.
it it's I remember, especially for women, but it starts for men now too. It's I was screening this documentary called Embrace, and it's this Adelaide woman who had three kids, and she did this documentary. It's called Embrace, and what did she say? Your body is not an ornament; it's a vehicle, And embracing, yeah, it's like, it just, yeah, it's a
Yeah,
crazy, crazy world, and but you have to be
it is.
aware of that. And I don't know if that comes with age or something, but
Yeah.
yeah.
I definitely think it comes from age and experience, and that's my opinion and my
Yeah.
viewpoint, you know, from the different things that you do go through and how much you want to change something. If you get to a point in your life where you see, as you say, Jutta, and last week we had Fur on, and I know before that Myra, and it's funny how we are able to see when you get to that point where you can see these repeating patterns and the part that you play in that. But I honestly believe, now, correct me, I mean, obviously everyone has their own opinion, right? You tell me your opinion on this, but I honestly believe that you have to somehow reach a breaking point and a part of desperation for you to go, okay, what do I need to do? What steps do I need to take to change my life?
Well, I don't like to generalize. So, I mean, in
Mm,
most cases, it is a breaking point when you actually hit rock bottom. But and I mean, the thing is, what I realize is people tend to only change if moving forward is or staying the same is more painful than moving forward, you know?
mm,
And so if you get to this point that staying where you are is more painful than moving forward, because nobody likes to move forward and getting out this we were talking about familiarity. Um, we tend to prefer familiarity to uncertainty, and when you transform there's always a period of uncertainty and we don't like to
yes.
step into it, so we actually stay in situations which are really shitty and detrimental to us because it's familiar, but familiarity is even better than uncertainty. So
Yes.
even so, and embracing uncertainty, I mean, takes courage again. You have to
Mm.
be really fed up, and then another thing I see is people are not stopping. What do I really want from my life? What I really want? What do I really care about? Which I want,
Where do you think that comes from, Utah?
that nobody I think A, we don't take time to do that. B, we might not believe we deserve a better life.
Yeah.
Say we think it's not possible, we don't have choices, we're stuck.
Mm.
You see, like what I learned in my old age, we are all autonomous beings. We have, and as I follow this guy called Jesse Elde. What does he say? We are so free. We are totally free that we can actually choose misery.
Oh, that's powerful.
And it
That is very
sounds,
powerful.
if you are in a bad situation or had a bad it sounds like it's, oh yeah, but it's not my fault. But I mean,
Hmm.
what happens, you see, like there's a saying, what happens if you have an event, it's actually neutral. There's no, in the universal thing, it's neutral. There's no bad, good, or whatever. It's neutral. And then we make a meaning out of it. And that meaning actually makes us feel a certain way.
Hmm.
It's not, and I had a client who he was living with his grandparents. His mom put him there for 9 months or something, and the grandmother said, don't you, to the grandfather, don't you give him a lolly. And then he gave him a lolly. Grandmother comes in and she loses her stuff. Shit, I nearly said. And rage and blah blah blah, and he made that mean that he's bad and he got his grandfather.
Hmm.
But then I challenged him, so what if you make up a different meaning? It could be her last lolly, it could be that one of her siblings died on choking on a lolly, because my daughter nearly did when she was raped. And so this, and then we internalize this meaning, so that we have 40, 50, 60 year olds who are still working this thing out, which happened to them when they were 7. And as children,
Yes.
as we say, between 0 and 7 is our imprint period, so we don't have
Hmm.
a filter. It's like hypnotherapy. hypno, we don't have a filter. So everything what we get into our brain is we take for face value, and we take it for personal. It's all
Yes.
in our little world. So yeah, and it's actually interesting. I'm just listening to what's his name, Gabor Mate Gabor, the psychologist. He's a trauma expert. The myth of normal, and he said he had these people in the audience and said, "Have you been to a neurologist, to all these doctors?" And everybody put their hands up, and he said, "Did anybody ask you what happened to you in childhood?" And all these doctors, and I mean, I'm convinced that many, 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 many illnesses are due to our trauma. And it doesn't even have to be big traumas. It can be like the lolly thing, like some people have really big traumas, like my parents, they grew up in the Second World War. My dad was 6 when the war started. My mom was 4,
Wow.
so, and I
And
mean,
in
then
Germany too.
yes, and then you get the intergenerational trauma. So
Mm-hmm.
everybody has trauma. It's nothing unique,
That's right. No, it's nothing unique. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Everyone.
sorry,
Yeah. Carry on, Jutta.
yeah, and so in the book he said too, sometimes it's just little traumas which seem insignificant, but they still have significant consequences. So but when we like 20, 30, like we could say, oh, my parents did this and this, and my parents did that, and this and that happened to me. Yeah, okay, but if you need to take responsibility, not as for that. You see, like in the being, because we might talk about the being profile, the being book,
definitely.
responsibility distinction is there, not blame, shame, whose fault it is that you're an autonomous person. Everybody has autonomy, and you can actually decide and have a choice how you want to respond to something. So it's responsibility is really, the definition is being responsible to anything what happens in your life. And that's what gives you the power.
That is what gives you the power. Absolutely. Okay, so let's, for a moment, right? Because obviously these experiences have led you to where you are today. And so a bit later, I want to really delve into the being profile, NLP, and the things that you started to turn to. And I believe that these things also built resilience. Resilience is a huge thing for anyone going through any amount of trauma. And there are definitely these little dot points per se that add to resilience, add to a wanting, or as you say, Jutta, to getting to a point in your life where you want it to be different, you want to see it different. But when you look back at these little patterns that we've been speaking about, and you're now in your marriage, how long were you in that marriage, Jutta? What was that like for you?
The second how long was I in my marriage? Probably 6 years, because my daughter was 6 and my son was 4. And I actually put an intervention order on him, but I said to the judge he can still stay at home, because I just wanted to set a mark, and they didn't understand it. But when I came home and I told him I'd put an intervention order on him, and he said, yeah, you did the right thing, because he was also very aware, because he was actually, by then he was 6 years in NA, Narcotics Anonymous. So yeah, and he still goes there after 32 years. Yeah, so that, and then he actually left, and I really think that he left because how can I say that, to do us a favor, that we didn't have to put up with shit anymore, you know. And he was very aware of it. And we actually did a Facebook group together a few years ago. I didn't take off because I didn't really put too much effort in it. But he actually did a few videos and was talking about domestic violence. And I wanted to do my intention was, but I haven't done it, like an interview, like from his point of view, my point of view, my kid's point of view, and my ex-partner's point of view, because even my ex-part, you know, so yeah,
Wow, Jutta.
yeah. So, you know, how it looked like for my daughter, for my son,
Yes.
how it looked like for him. And I mean, he actually in the video he said, you know, like, if anybody has problems with Dominic, you know, ring me, whatever, DM me. So he's actually, yeah, he mellowed out very much, but and yes, he's very aware. He has worked very hard on himself, and I think looking at that, you can actually see that people can change, you know.
Yes.
And I mean, this
Yes.
is an intergenerational thing too,
Yes.
you know. It's
It
I mean,
definitely is
who's
intergenerational.
fault? I mean, they still have to be responsible for their actions, but and that was actually detrimental to me at the time, because I had already quite done a lot. I went to Al-Anon, which is for family and friends of alcoholic and drug addicts, which is a really like an anonymous group, very cool. And I was already very aware why he was doing it, and you see that understanding actually was detrimental to me.
Yes. Yes, I love this point because I have been there too. And you look at it from their point of view, and it really becomes this excuse and validation. You know, I understand what you went through. I understand, oh, this is something that you're familiar with. That's okay. We'll work through it together. But it seems to be that the more you forgive, the less responsibility that person is really able to take, because we kind of keep giving an allowance per se.
Yeah,
You
I
know?
mean, that's where the codependency comes in. You know, like,
Yes, yes.
I mean, we probably have the awareness, other people might have not the awareness, but they put, you know, like, so what codependency is really, when you look NLP, you have, what's it called? Perspective, position. I can't even remember what it's called. It doesn't matter. So you have, like, I would be number one, the other person would be number one, position number one. And then
Yes.
you have a position number three, which is the observer. So the observer can observe these two people without any emotions attached to it. Yeah. So I could actually, in my mind, I could go from mine, how this interview comes from me, how it appears from you, looking at me, and then we could,
Wow.
anyway. And actually, I learned that police people, ambulance people, they actually learn how to go into the third position, so they don't have
Yes.
any emotion, so
Of
they keep
perspective. Yeah.
clear and rational making decisions. But you
Yes.
see, when a person is too much in number one, that means they're very egoistic and egocentric, because they just look at everything from their point of view.
Own
But
perspective. Yeah.
so, you know, we should be able to get into the other person's shoes for a while and look at it from their standpoint and their perspective. Yeah.
Yes.
So in coaching, we can actually do that. So just imagine you be in their shoes. How would you see it? Then look into from the third position. But codependency for me is when we are too much in the second position. You know, we
Yes.
don't care about our feelings. We care more about their feelings. We don't care about how upset we are, and you know, we just, does that make sense? We just care about them.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's
Makes.
codependency for me, you know, like, if you put then that's putting yourself on the back burner all the time, and then your cup goes empty. You just, you know, there's so
Yeah.
many, like, especially women, they give so much, and they want to help someone, and they go to in the mud, and then they are so damaged and so depressed and anxious, and you know, so they're not good for anybody.
Yeah.
So there's like two sick people there.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also comes back to, as you say, right, when we look at childhood, but also these belief systems that are instilled into us. So a lot of the time when it comes to the old school, and I mean, look, yes, we've been modernized to a place where, on one hand, it's not necessarily a bad thing because we're speaking about a lot more. But at the same time, there's still a lot more things that we're not talking about. It seems that, these things of AI, gender neutral, all that sort of stuff has really taken, and obviously we're not here to talk about that tonight, but all of that has really taken this huge scoping standpoint for the world of what people should be standing up for their rights. But if we actually look back to the patterns that we developed growing up and how these patterns inevitably enable us to be enablers. So because I'm a woman, I'm more nurturing, I'm more of a caregiver, I'm the person that's cooking, cleaning, all the rest of it. Now, yes, we have a lot of business oriented women. I'm one of those people. But at the same time, I still have those things that were instilled in me growing up. And it's the same thing for a man, right? A man should be a hard worker. A man shouldn't cry. A man should be able to take it all. A woman should. And so when we really, and of course, Jutta, right, if we can't go back. We can't go back to build people, genders, freedom of speech, all these types of things, if it really does exist. We can't renew that. So how do you think we instill, when we talk about codependency and living in that person's shoes as a woman, and then seeing things from, just bear with me for a moment. I think it's an absolutely amazing viewpoint that you have. And I've never actually considered that. And this is something that I think you should, if you wanted to do something like this, Jutta, I think to myself, what an amazing idea to actually see something from another person's standpoint. Because we tend to really, as you say, generalize, right? And then we have the victimhood and we have the blame and we have all these things. We know that there's intergenerational trauma. But when we witness someone that has changed and has put in the work, like your ex-husband, you wonder what scope he sees things from.
What was it? What?
We wonder what scope he sees things from. So what he was going through in that moment and in that time that, made him that angry to do all, to become violent, to have the outbursts. Is it the fact that he held on to his own personal traumas? Is it the fact that he was never allowed to express?
Well, he comes from, the movie Once Were Warriors. That's where he comes from, and I went to see it with him. Very, and I remember sitting in the car afterwards for 10 minutes and we didn't talk. I actually could relate to it. And he comes from a thing like that, and so, and there's so many boys. Sometimes you go through an experience like this when you grow up, and it either deters you, is that the right word? And you totally get the opposite, or you just go into the footstep what you have learned, and it's sad. And I don't know, looking at so many divorces and single mothers and sons without role models, like even my son said, he never had a proper role model, and how many men are there, boys who we don't teach properly how to, but and it's also how many girls, like they were in my daughter's class, they were 16, 17, they were already in abusive relationships. And it's I remember giving a talk in church. I'm not going to church anymore, but and I said it's all about self-love, it's all about self-love. And because when you don't depend on this outside validation anymore, it's just so much freer, it's just so much freer. And I had a few insights, like I was sort of thinking, I remember, why don't I, because I was always a black sheep, okay? I was like, my brother was 3 years older, I went to the pub and drank, I did all the stuff. My brother didn't do anything. I was smoking, drinking, anyway.
I was the same, yeah.
Yeah. But the thing is, and I always thought, why don't they accept me the way I am, And then I thought,
yes, what is wrong with me?
Yeah, why don't they accept me the way I am? And then I thought,
Mm.
Jutta, what are you talking about? You don't even accept yourself the way you are.
Oh,
You know,
boom. Yes.
we accept, we think about, we want from others what we can't even give
Good for
ourselves.
ourselves.
Why
Yes.
why don't you love me the way I am? You know,
Yeah.
and I thought, you don't even love yourself the way you are.
Mm.
Like, how can
Yeah.
you expect it from other people? Or you want
Yes.
other people to be different?
Now, you and I have done some work on this, right? Now, obviously, we won't
Yeah.
go into that, but of that whole thing of, why don't they're this person in my life, so they're meant to be this way towards me. And I
Mm.
remember you saying to me when we were doing this work, and you said to me on the Being profile and NLP, and we were doing our practice sessions, and you said to me, but who says? Who
Exactly. I
who
mean,
says?
somebody,
Where does that rule come from? And that was
I
such a
know.
powerful moment for me, Yuta, because I needed someone to say that to me. Where does that rule come from? Where are you getting that from? The fact that you believe that automatically you're entitled to be accepted and to be loved in this particular category because of who they are to you. Where does that come from? And I was like, fuck, yeah. Where says who? We all
Well, the
carry
thing
our own
is that
stuff.
we have all this expectation from other people. We don't do it
Mm,
ourselves. And
yes,
then we tell
yes,
us, oh, they should do this and they should do this and I should do that.
yeah,
Man, like, who says? Like, which book are you reading this from?
yes.
And you make your own bloody rules,
Mm,
like, yeah. And I mean, the coming back to this Jesse Elder dude again, what did he also said, giving others the freedom to do their journey, giving others the freedom to
mm,
do their life. Who are we
yes.
to determine that somebody else should be a certain way? Maybe in the big scheme and zooming out in the universal scheme, like, it's not in their path, whatever.
Mm,
And the thing is, we are the expert of our lives, and that's where it
yes,
should stay. Like,
yes.
you do you, they do them. And you can set boundaries. You can say, this is not on, this is like unacceptable, this make, like, I feel like la la la, and you can make
Mm,
stand. But ultimately, you cannot change somebody else. You can inspire them, but then
yes.
you should inspire yourself as well. You
Hmm.
see, I just have to do a thing about leadership. I mean, we have to lead ourselves.
Yes, yes. Yeah. Because
And
it's
I
your life. You know
mean,
which direction you want it to go in.
well, I think do you remember my Tino Rangatira Tanga, my tattoo?
Yes, yes,
Do you remember what it means?
yes. Can I ask you to quickly tell the audience about it? I've just got to quickly let my cat out. She's on the thing and
Yeah,
she's
yeah,
being
yeah.
really
Okay,
good. So
I
do you
tell the
mind just,
audience
yeah,
about it.
thank you.
Okay, so what happened is, that's so weird talking to myself. What happened is, so my ex is Maori from New Zealand, and I talked sometimes to his mom. I never met her, and I talked to her, I don't know, 8, 9 years ago. And at the time when I was talking to her, he called her from Perth, and she said, "Oh, I just have to talk to him." So he bought a T-shirt called Tino Rangatira Tanga, which is Maori. And I said to her when she was back with me, "What does it mean?" And she said, "Be proud of who you are." And that really resonated with me, because I was never proud of who I was. Anyway, 2 days later, I buy the Herald Sun and read my horoscope, and guess what it said? Be proud of who you are. Exactly the same words. And I thought, if this is not a sign from the universe, anyway. So I inquired. So it means also, be proud of who you are, be the best you can be, and be your higher
Mm,
self. And it's
yeah.
also a treaty of Waitangi, when the English did the treaty with Morris, 1800 or something. And it means self-governship, autonomy, and sovereignty. So you self-governship, you do your own rules. Obviously, we have to adhere to social,
Yes,
societal rules, but
of course.
basically, you're an responsibility. You're an autonomous person who designs your life, and there are
Hmm.
certain things we cannot change. But many people concentrate on the things they cannot change and get upset and pissed off, instead of, hey, what can I change? And that's like 12 step as well. God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot
Things I
change,
can't
change
change.
the things I can,
Yeah.
and the wisdom to know the difference. Yeah.
Difference. That's right. Yeah. Where are you putting your energy? And I think that's something really that our viewers tonight, or whenever, if they want to watch the replay, that's a huge thing, Jutta. Where are you putting your energy? Where are you directing your life? What are you leading? What are you wanting to lead your life into?
Well,
These
and
are
the
just.
thing is, if we reminisce, I mean, like, I don't agree to suppress your emotions. You have to work through
I
it. And,
agree. Yes.
but the thing is, how many times, like, because I used to work on breakup and divorce, like, how many times do you think about your ex? Like, every day, like, for 3 hours, and then you get more and more upset. Well,
Mm,
it doesn't work, like, the thing
yes.
is, I, for instance, put like a timer on. Okay, I can think 2 minutes about him, and then I divert my attention, you
This
know
same this same technique was brought up last week as well with
oh,
her, and this
really?
is an amazing technique where you set your timer to think about something, and then that's it. Now that's done, and now you have to move on to the next thing. And I think it's an absolutely great form of actually healing and going through something where you're only doing it for a specific amount of time, whether that be once a week, however long, if it's something that's really raw, however you're working through that. But I think it's an absolutely amazingly powerful technique and a great holistic approach, Jutta.
Well, the thing is, it's like that, like, because the more we think about something, the more we build the neural pathways, and the
Yes.
highway in our heart gets bigger. So, and the bigger and more profound they are, the more emotional impact do they have on us. So,
Hmm.
what we want is, we want to shrink them. So
Yes.
and I shared that too. I used to live in this house. Opposite was like a bushland, and there was nothing, and then some kids were running motorbikes through. People started to walk the dogs, and the pathway would go bigger and bigger. Yeah, but then the snakes came, and nobody
Yeah.
would go, and the
Uh,
pathways would grow over. And that's what you
mm,
want. You want to build new neural pathways. So you want to build, have a vision of your future. How do you want to create your
yes.
future? What do you want to in your cook, and put a lot of emphasis on there. Yes,
Hmm.
you have to work on your trauma and get, you can do that with hypnotherapy or journaling, but you can, like, how much time are you spending in the past, and
Hmm.
how much in the future? And the
Hmm.
thing is, um where does the past exist?
Yeah, exactly.
Where does it
It's like
exist?
driving. Yeah, it's like driving a car, right? You can't drive forward, always looking into the rear view mirror. You'll end up having a
Well,
crash.
the
You
the
take into
front,
consideration.
the rear mirror is smaller and the front is bigger. That's probably has a
Yes.
reason for it. But the thing is, or a navigation system doesn't ask you where you have been, where you want, where you now, and where you want to go.
Yeah,
And so,
absolutely.
yes, we have to work our trauma out, and we have to examine it. But you see, in general, yes, I mean, the thing is, the past is the past. Work through it,
Hmm.
but don't stay there.
Yeah.
Don't, like, you are not a victim of life. You become an active agent of your life.
Hmm. And so when you started to become an active agent of your life, now I know that we've discussed how your ex-husband actually ended up leaving, and how now he has definitely put those changes in place. But when you started to become an active agent of your life, what were some of the things that you did to start yourself off, Jutta? Because let's agree that healing, trauma, overcoming, building resilience, changing those patterns, taking responsibility is not something that happens overnight. We don't just decide, oh, yep, okay, that's it. My life's going to change, and tomorrow it's all different, right? We've got to put in these active steps. So share with me what some of these things were for you.
Well, the first thing, when he left, I was 38. I had two little kids, 4 and 6. My parents were 18,000 kilometers away.
Wouldn't have been easy.
Pardon?
I said it wouldn't have been easy.
Yeah, so I decided to do my VC as a 38-year-old. So I went to school.
Mm.
Did my VCE with, I don't know, I had 93.7 TR, which was good. And I wanted to study psychology,
Wow.
but I got a uni place, but it was in the city. It was too far. So I said, nah, like, yeah, if I would have gone here next to me is a university, I would have gone. So yeah, I didn't do it. And then I got a few years later into coaching, which was okay. But
Mm.
I remember my psych teacher she met me in the hallway and she said to me, "You haven't even scratched the surface of your potential."
Wow. Wow. Yes, and I can so see that. Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah. And then yeah, so I did my VCE and that was really good. And what happened then? That was 2000. I did a lot of courses with landmark education, lots of them. That was very powerful. Um and yeah, it's I don't know, sometimes I think you let down a certain pathway. I was chatting to this guy in
Mm.
London 1999 and I said, there's something different about you. I had done landmark, so I checked that landmark out and it was in the city. So yeah, I did lots of courses with that. I mean, some people think it's a cult, but it's a little bit of BS. But I did lots, and that's my empowerment. Women's empowerment comes from a landmark course called Self-Expression Leadership Program. There is Are You Okay Day and Clean Up Australia Day. They come
Yes.
both from this course, and this was yeah. And the funny thing is, I actually meditated 2018. I did this special meditation for manifesting stuff, and I saw myself with a lapel microphone in front of the
Mm.
audience. And 7 months later, I did it, and I actually didn't only realize 2 weeks later that I did it.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
think it comes with that natural calling, Jutta, and this is the really, really powerful thing is that there are so many people, so many individuals, whether male or female, that have been through really hard times and that have really decided to intentionally turn it around, and make life better and more worthwhile. What is the meaning of happiness to you? And this is a question that I think, I ask myself this, and I only started to ask myself it after I started working with Jessica Palmer. And she used to say to me, "Tell me what love is to you, and tell me what happiness is to you." And these really reflective questions, and then obviously working with yourself. And it's amazing when you can actually start to learn from other people and to actively start to engage to change things. But there are so many people that have done this. The only difference is that however they done it, we don't always share it, right? Because it's not something that we're actively talking about all the time.
Well, I think everybody's path is different.
Mm.
But like everybody has that trauma, as we said before. And do you let your life be defined by what happened to you in the past?
Mm.
That's probably, like it's
Yeah.
like, and I gave once a talk at the Toastmasters, and I also teach public speaking. It was called "You Are the Greatest Gift," and you are the greatest gift. The bestest of you is the greatest gift to society, to the world. So
Mm.
the more you polish yourself, the more you are the greatest gift. And
Yes.
like in regard you don't matter. Well, even a leaf falling off a tree matters to its
Mm.
environment.
Mhm.
And this world would be
That's
different
beautiful.
without you and with you. It's
Mhm.
different. We are all unique. So
Mm.
I think getting that, and so that we're unique, everybody else is unique, and we are an expression of life, of
Mhm.
existence. And
Yes.
so are we honoring that?
Mm. Yeah, definitely.
And
So
so
can
yeah,
we
you are
just
the greatest gift.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's such a beautiful reminder and a very powerful reminder because I think sometimes we forget that. Sometimes we forget the value, who we are, what we bring, what we stand for, all those things
Well,
that make us
yeah.
unique.
Yeah. I think my little metaphor. when, I don't know who it was, Anthony Robbins or whatever, they had a $20 note on stage and they said, who wants it? And everybody said, yeah. And then he crumbled it up, and then who wants it? Everybody still wanted the $20 note. And then he chucked it on the ground and he stamped on it, and he got it. Everybody still wanted the $20 note. And that's like how it is with human beings. It doesn't matter what happens to you, scrambled up, stepped on, whatever. The worth of a human being never changes.
Yeah, that's a very, very powerful analogy. I hadn't actually heard of that one, Jutta.
Oh, no, okay.
No.
Yeah.
So that's very, very cool. I'm sure I'm not the only one. I hope so anyway.
Yeah. So I mean, if you want the definition of love, my definition of love is now creating a nurturing environment for each other, so each other will reach their full potential.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
That's
and
beautiful,
in regard to
because
happiness, well, that's when we get into the being profile, because everybody cares about something, because that's what makes us human beings. We
yes.
all care about something. Something is important, because if we care for everything the same, we don't care for anything. So we have actually certain things we should care about more than other things. And so in the being profile, it's all about leadership, performance, and effectiveness, which sounds very business-like, but even in private. So you care for something, and you have all these qualities, what we measure with the being profile, and then you polish what needs to be polished, and then fulfilling your intentions, basically, what you care about.
Yeah.
That's happiness.
Exactly, that's right. And it's funny how, we've spoken a little bit about codependency, but this is a perfect moment, because often we tend to tie in love to attachment and codependency. Can you please elaborate a little bit on those three aspects?
So codependency, attachment. So I think
As being love.
attachment, I think we have to learn that. In my old days, it was like, the more I suffer, the more I love. Like, it's such a unhealthy attitude, but
Yes.
many of us have this, oh, I suffer so much for this person, so I must love them.
Love them. Yes. Yeah.
Like, it's not now. I think attachment, we learn, like, what happens with attachment. I what my understanding is, when we grow up and there's lack of attachment, that we don't get nurtured and our needs met, we have these attachment styles which are mostly unhealthy. So it's very unhealthy and very, how can I say, not conscious, and so if somebody rejects us, we're making it personal. Most of it's not
Yes.
personal.
Yes.
Like, if somebody dumps you, and I mean, it's just their care has probably changed. It has nothing to do with you, really. Like, and we cannot be loved and liked by everybody. I think there's a
Yes.
book, having the courage to be disliked.
Mm.
And that's another thing. It's like, we really have to learn that not everybody likes us, not everybody loves us, and it's okay. It's
Yes,
okay.
that's right.
Like,
Yeah.
you don't like everybody, love everybody. Some people,
Yeah.
you just click with
It's
some
kind of
people you
like,
like. Yeah.
yes, it's kind of like not loving every food. I have my likes and my dislikes with food, and with my routines, and with, sport or whatever. And it goes with the same thing for humanity. We all have the people that we mesh with, the ones that we don't. And it doesn't mean that we have to make meaning out of that.
Well,
It is what it is.
I mean, the thing is, you can make meaning, but you see, like,
Yes.
I always challenge my clients, well, make 5 or 10 different meanings up, because meanings are made up, and just choose the one which makes you feel better. Like,
Yes.
like, I mean, somebody once said, like, I don't care what the truth is anymore. I care what is useful. What is what
Wow.
is actually empowering. Like, because really, like, I did once this course in Queensland called Mastering the Matrix, and I was for 3 months. Everything is made up. Like, why are people so crazy and suffer? And, like, and I thought everything is made up, like, so somebody doesn't looks at you a certain way, and what's wrong with me? Like, maybe they're just
Yes.
having a bad day. Everything we
Yeah.
make
Building a
is not
story.
that important. And another thing too, like, I remember being in this, because like, you sit next to each other with 200 people, and you close your eyes, and she said, oh, you're really scared about the next person, and what would they think about you, and that would, what judgments, la la la. And then, maybe you realize that the other person has the same thoughts about you.
Yes. Yes, that is very, very true. And
Everybody's
that's
seeing you.
scientifically proven. Yeah, the mirroring effect, and
Right.
I think that was Carl Jung that was speaking about that, this mirroring effect, and how even like when you're speaking to someone else, more often than not, you're going to mirror them. And how they're feeling, you're feeling, and how you're feeling, they're probably feeling as well. So it's those same types of effects.
Yeah. And I mean, what I learned
Mhm.
also is, I think, in my journey, is everything starts with yourself. Everything.
Yes, yes.
Like, as soon you put blame on somebody else, like, you lost it. Everything starts with yourself. Like, you want to be having a loving partner, you want to have positive people in your life, you have to be positive. You have to
That's
be the
right.
partner you seek to have, like,
Yes.
as I said before, people, oh, please love me the way I am. Like,
Mm.
start with that. And then you will
Yeah.
attract people who like you, love you for the way and person you are.
Hmm.
The universe gives you only as much love you give to yourself.
To yourself. Yes. Yeah. You cannot love others until you learn to love yourself. And these are things that are not necessarily easy for my, like, for example, for myself. I don't know about you, Yuta, but when you are learning to love yourself, because when you are in these patterns of behavior where they're very destructive, and you're attracting, the same destructiveness in your life, you tend to not love yourself, right? Because your own complexities of yourself go down. You don't view yourself in a good way. You don't have enough confidence, all of these sorts of things. And so starting to nurture yourself is a very slow process, but it's a beautiful one as long as you give it time. So, what are some of your hints and tips for, um, I suppose, working through being in places of codependency and destructive relationships? I know that we keep touching on it starts with you, but
Yeah, yeah. I
tell me
mean,
a bit
it is
more.
starting with you. Like, first, well, what do you want? What do you really want? You want to
Mm,
continue living in a relationship like this? You want to suffer? You want to, or do you want to change? If you make a decision you want to change, then you can seek help. There's lots of
mhm.
resources, lots of
So many.
counselors, coaches. Reach out. I mean, that's sort of where it came from me too. Because I was so
Mm,
independent. We have to learn to reach out. We have to learn to be contributed to. We are all these givers and contributing and helping other people, because it makes it so feel good, because we deep inside we actually don't feel good about that ourselves. But we have to learn to give other people the opportunity to contribute to us. I think
mm.
that's really important.
Yeah, yeah.
Like we have to be open, because no man woman is an island. We all in this together.
Yes.
And there's people who have gone like me. We have gone through this stuff. Reach
Mm,
out for them, or anybody really who
mm,
you can help you. Getting out of this cycle and
mm.
working through it. What else? What else would I say? Um, well, there's a coaching model called below and above the line. So below the
Oh, yes.
line is shame, blame, making up stories, justification, reasons, judgments, making up stories. Okay, so
Hmm.
all this rubbish, and that's when you stay stuck. You
Hmm.
cannot move forward if you're blaming other people, shaming up blood, or yourself. If you blame yourself,
Mm.
shame yourself, there's no power in this. So if you want to
No.
be empowered and getting out of this rut and being stuck, you have to go above the line, and you have to take responsibility. So how do I respond respond to this? Where are my
Mm-hmm.
choices? What can I do? Like,
Mm-hmm.
how can I react differently? Like, find choices and opportunities. So it's responsibility, accountability, be accountable
Yes,
for your life,
huge. Yeah.
and take ownership where you are,
Mm-hmm.
and accept what is without any, get out of this good, bad, I need fixing BS, like there's no
Yes.
good, no bad. It is
Yeah.
what it is, like,
Mm.
and so just what are you going to do about it? So you
Mm-hmm.
can
Yeah,
put a
that's right.
face on your, you know, and like, yeah, and your internal dialogue, obviously it's very important, we know that.
So important. Yes.
But there's like lots of tools and state management, how to deal with your emotion and stress. How do you deal with your stress? If you're stressed, your part of your brain switches off and you
Mm-hmm.
can't think properly. So you
Yeah.
have to de-stress and really nurturing yourself.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yes.
And if you
Taking
don't
care of yourself.
ah
Yeah. Yeah, because once you can take care of yourself and once you actually have standards for yourself and how you treat yourself, it's amazing how those standards automatically, they become so autonomic within you that you know your worth. You know what you want and where you're going and what you want to allow into your life and the nourishment. You're talking about techniques. Please, can you just tell us a little bit more? Because I know that you're so experienced with this. I've been to, I don't know if I want to use the word conference, but when you've done the being profile, and I've been a part of that, and I know that you and I have done a bit of work on that as well. So tell
yeah.
me how the being profile, NLP, hypnotherapy, these types of utensils and techniques can be helpful. And then also, if you don't mind, whilst we're here, if I could just ask you when we finish the show, on Out of the Fog, the Trauma Network Facebook page, do you mind just putting your link for if anyone would like to get in touch with you to learn more about them?
I can do it. Okay. So the being profile, I do that since 2 years. I'm working with a guy, like a community of coaches in Sydney. So the being profile is, or being framework is very different to other coaching modalities. We're looking
Mm,
at the ways of being, how you're being, and there's 31 ways of being what we can measure. So, for instance, assertiveness, care, vulnerability, awareness, we can actually
mm,
measure, and then you know where the gaps are and where you have to polish. Okay, so basically what it is, say for instance you have a Ferrari coming out of the factory and it's perfect, it's like we're perfect, and then
mm,
we get condition, culture, blah blah blah. So this Ferrari runs and then it doesn't run 100% anymore, so you put a diagnostic tool in it and you see what you have to fine tune, and that's the same with the being profile. Very
mm.
powerful. I love it. It's really
So
powerful.
powerful.
Very different. Yeah, like you have done it. Yeah, it's
I
like
and I
you
can
like,
absolutely attest to how powerful this is because it literally and it's actually quite amazing how the results once you finish doing your consult with Utah and you get sent your results, right? And so you actually go through it together, right, Utah? When you catch
yeah,
up
yeah,
and
you
after you've
get a
answered the questions and
2 hour
you go through
briefing
the
with
things.
me. Yes.
That's right, exactly. And then basically you make contact and you and I made contact and then you walk me through all of it. And it was so amazing as to how I was able to go, oh my God, yes, that is so me, and these little places and where you need to do a bit more work and when it comes to yourself. And it's absolutely amazing. Complete attest to it. It's very, very beneficial. And then also the techniques that come with it too, that the helpful
Yeah, like
little probes
it's
and things. Yeah.
your awareness just goes so big,
Mm-hmm.
like you get
Yes.
so aware of things, where you lack assertiveness, confidence, and how it's all interlinked. It's really
Mm.
amazing. So NLP is a little bit more, how would I say it? For me, I don't know if everybody agrees with, for me it's a little bit more head stuff, because
Yes.
it's,
I agree.
neuro linguistic programming is, neuro is
Programming.
mind, linguistic
Yeah.
is words, programming. So it's very powerful,
Mm.
very powerful. You can get rid of phobias. You can state manage, like if you need to change your state, like you flustered or like anxious, you can actually change your state.
Mhm.
I have done
It's
so.
like, So I was going to say, it's like reprogramming, isn't it, Jutta?
Yeah. Like
Reprogramming the
but
way
it's
that you, yes.
more mind stuff, you know.
Mm,
Like whereas in the being profile, it's more how you being. You see, like
yeah.
in normal life, we think if I have $1 million, I will do this, and then I will be happy. So
Mm-hmm.
in the being profile, we change it. You will be happy or courageous. Then you will do certain things differently when you have courage, and then you get the results. So we put everything together. Your state of being determines how you what decisions you make, what behavior you portray and stuff. So we focus on the being, and it's Ashkan, who developed it, he looked at I think 1,000 people who were leaders and top achievers, and they
Mm,
had all these qualities, and they're innate in every person. We have them all, the same thing.
yes.
Okay, hypnotherapy is more going into the subconscious. You know, like
Mm,
I mean, a lot of the NLP a little bit too, but it's because we run really a lot by our subconscious, you know, like what
yes.
beliefs we. So that's it, very powerful. I'm also I do also heart math, which is actually it's like a breathing, gets rid of anxiety and depression. You can put that in your iPhone. I put this and I actually see my autonomous nervous system to balance it out, and
It's
you get a
amazing.
biofeedback. Very, very powerful. I use it for my atrial fibrillation sometimes.
Yeah.
What else do we have? MBIT, multiple brain integration technique. I'm also a certified multiple brain integration coach. We got actually, how many brains do we have? Now we actually got 3 brains.
Have I got three?
Yeah.
Tell
Yeah.
me.
So we got a heart brain, a head brain, and a gut brain. And
Gut brain.
so,
Yes. Okay. Yes. Yes.
yeah, and what a brain makes a brain is they have neurons, they can learn, they have memory, blah blah. And you know, like when somebody has a heart transplant and they get suddenly they want pizza and beer, but they
Yes.
never wanted, yeah. So that's a
Never
memory
wanted it.
of the
Yes.
heart. Yeah,
Same as
neuron.
people getting a blood transfusion, never being a smoker in their life, and they start to crave a cigarette.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
So and there's actually more information going from the gut to the head
Head.
than
Yes.
down, and like 80% of serotonin or 90 is made in the gut, so that's
Gut.
why our gut is so important. And from the braining with like neurons, what else, like they have core competencies, the brain. So the heart is relationships, emotions, values. The
Mm-hmm.
brain is um analytical thinking, making up stories. The gut is core identity, self-protection, and mobilization. So if you don't move forward and you feel stuck, it could be that the gut feels afraid, protects you, or your core identity is threatened. It's very, very interesting as well.
That is
Um,
amazing, Yusuf.
yeah. So if you are aligned between heart, head, and gut, they knew that 3,000 years ago, and now they scientifically have proven it. So if everything's
Wow.
aligned, you have access to your highest wisdom. So you know it doesn't. You know, like heart wants to go there, head wants to go there, doesn't work.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
if you do in leadership, if you make a mission statement and which is not made from the heart, and people
Mm,
don't follow your mission statement, they're not engaged, it's because you haven't done it from the heart, because this is where relationship is and values.
makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, and we have like actually language. I got butterflies in my stomach. You broke
Yes.
my heart. You know, our
Yes.
language is in each language they have this. Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
interesting. Different
That's
intelligence.
so interesting. That's amazing, Yuta. Wow, you have got such a wealth of experience. And this is
Yeah,
why I was so excited to have you on here, because I knew that you would be able to touch on all of these different facets. And I love the fact that we've covered trauma patterns, codependency, relationships. We've delved into all of these different things. Um, is there anything else that you want to put across today, Yuta? Apart from, I suppose, I would really like you to leave the audience, just leave a message for anyone that might be going through a difficult time right now. within their relationships, within codependency, within self-doubt. The relationship to ourself is the most important one. And I think that's really a core principle that we can take. I don't know if you want to say principle, but a core value that we can take away from tonight.
Well, you see, like the things we make up about ourselves, for instance, I'm a loser, all these in things, it's all my fault, la 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 la. And then it's like you have a torch and you have a warehouse, okay? So you take this, for instance, you're a loser, and you take all these, you point your light, your torch on all the things which prove to you that you're a loser. Instead of putting the light on and looking at everything, because there's lots of things that could give you the opposite proof. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What we believe, we want to be right. We want, no, I'm a loser, so we look at everything which supports that.
Validates that, yes.
Idea. Yeah. And what else is there? Don't put anybody on the pedestal, please. Because I used to do that with my ex-husband, and
it's powerful.
they fall very, and I mean, pedestals and statues are only for dead people. They're not dead yet, okay? And they can fall very fast. So why are you giving them the authority over you? Why is their opinion more important than your opinion? Don't listen to it. It's just when you look at it, if somebody goes rah, 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 it's really just data. It's just sounds coming out of their mouth. Don't put any importance on, because they got their issues. They got their shit going on.
Yeah.
Their story. Many people belittle other people in order to feel better because they feel so shit about themselves. We are just really people who try to do life, but you have to protect yourself. You are the most important person in your life. That's just full stop. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. That's beautiful, Jutta. Thank you.
Put nobody on pedestal. Nobody. Just like, no.
Yeah.
I don't do, and I think that was a very big lesson for me. Like when my ex-husband would belittle me and go rah 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 rah, I had actually saying, remember, for my empowerment summit, and cheese cost $3.50.
Yeah.
So it worked 100%. What they say is like, and I used to say, and in my head, obviously, and cheese costs $3.50. Like what they're saying has as much significance as the price of cheese.
Cheese, yes, that's right. And that's a great way to think about it, Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, so it's, little tricks. And I mean, just believe that it's possible, you do not have to stay there. And, everybody, I mean, there's some people like really big traumatic things happened to them and they still came out of it. Like it's possible. It's totally possible, because we human beings, we got that spirit, and like, you might be not easy, but you can do it and ask for help. Definitely.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely.
And there's a lot of love for everybody. They just have to look properly, and self-loathing. Yeah, you have to love yourself first. You are really, I mean, I don't want to be spiritual, religious, but you're a child of the universe, and you're worth it.
Yeah,
yourself
you matter. Yeah.
Like a leaf falling off a tree.
Yeah, that's good. Like a leaf falling off a tree. Thank you, Jutta. Thank you so much for coming out onto Out of the Fog, the Trauma Network. Please leave some of the things, the techniques that we've discussed tonight. I'd really appreciate it if you just put a comment as soon as you get some free time, and then also just a link as to where people can find you if they would like to ask you any questions about the Being Profile, NLP, hypnotherapy. Jutta is very widely experienced. I completely vouch for her and just say she's someone who will really, really be able to empower. That's what you do. You allow people to be empowered. You often leave you to space feeling empowered. So thank you so much for your time tonight.
Yeah, and for women, I got a Facebook group if you want to impart women.
Yes.
Just DM me or whatever. Like I will.
Yeah.
Yeah. All good. Thank you for
Oh,
having
good.
me. It's always good
Thank
to
you.
talk to you.
It's always good to talk to you, Jutta. So appreciate
Yeah.
your time and your
You too.
person.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Jutta.
Bye. See
Bye.
ya. Bye.
Bye.